Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. The message came just as I was rinsing dishes. A normal Tuesday night, quiet, Bean curled up by the radiator. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands, picked it up, and there it was. "I'll be staying at Jake's tonight. Don't wait up." No explanation, no excuse. Just a single line that dropped like a stone into my chest. For a moment, I thought maybe I was reading it wrong. Maybe she meant something else. But people don't type sentences like that by accident. My fiancée, the woman I'd spent 3 years building a life with, had just handed me the truth in 12 words. I stared at the screen, my pulse oddly steady. A storm should have come. Rage, heartbreak, panic. Instead, I felt cold clarity. She didn't stumble into betrayal. She chose it. And now she was telling me not to wait, as if I were a child left with the lights on too long. I typed back slowly, every letter deliberate. "Thanks for letting me know." That was it. No confrontation, no begging, no question marks. Just acknowledgement. I set the phone down, finished rinsing the plates, and dried my hands. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge. I walked into the bedroom we'd once painted together, pale green with laughter in the air, and opened her closet. Dresses, jackets, heels still in boxes. Every piece of clothing that had once been part of our story now looked like clutter from someone else's life. I pulled out 2 large cardboard boxes from the garage. One by one, I folded her things, placed them inside, and sealed each box with tape. There was no anger in the motion, just precision. Like packing up after a show that had ended. I didn't rush. I didn't throw. I wanted it neat, undeniable. By midnight, 4 boxes sat stacked by the door. Her entire wardrobe, her favorite shoes, even the jacket she wore on our first trip together, all of it. I looked at the stack and thought of the text. "I'll be staying at Jake's tonight. Don't wait up." Fine. I loaded the boxes into my trunk. The night air was cold, sharp, almost refreshing. The streets were empty, the city asleep. I drove across town to Jake's apartment, a building I had never visited but knew by address. She had slipped once in conversation weeks ago. My headlights cut across the brick exterior. I parked, carried the boxes one by one, and set them neatly by his door. For a moment I stood there, hands on my knees, breathing in the silence. Then I pulled a sticky note from my pocket and wrote, "She'll need these more here than at home." I stuck it on the top box, turned, and walked back to the car. By the time I slid into bed, the house was emptier, but lighter. Bean curled against me, sighing as if he too felt the shift. My phone buzzed at 3:07 a.m. Her name lit the screen, then again at 3:11, again at 3:20. By the 5th call, I silenced the ringer and closed my eyes. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the living room. My phone showed 14 missed calls and 9 voicemails. I played the first. Her voice was panicked, frantic, words tumbling. "Ethan, what did you do? Why are my things here? We need to talk. Please pick up." The second was sharper, desperate. "This isn't funny. Bring my clothes back. You can't just, Ethan, answer me." By the 3rd, she was crying. By the 7th, angry again. By the 9th, begging. I didn't answer any of them. I made coffee, fed Bean, and sat at the dining table with the paper. Calm, steady. She had made her choice and I had confirmed it. Later that day, a text arrived. "We need to meet, please, tonight." I looked at the screen, took a long sip of coffee and typed back, "I'll think about it." I didn't owe her an answer. But I knew one thing. The next time we sat across from each other, it wouldn't be me explaining myself. It would be her, staring at the reflection of the choice she thought I'd never call her on. And when that happened, I would be ready. By noon, my phone was a museum of missed calls. I let them sit while I did ordinary things on purpose. Laundry, sweeping, wiping the counter clean. Regular tasks feel like a spine when the heart goes jelly. At 1:14 p.m., she texted again, "Please meet me at the cafe on Pine at 6. I'll explain everything." I wrote back, 30 minutes. Bring the ring. The ring wasn't about money, it was about truth. Engagements are promises. When a promise breaks, you return the symbol that carried it. I arrived early and chose a table by the window where the light was unforgiving. She rushed in 5 minutes late, hair in a hurried knot, eyes red from sleep she didn't own. The little velvet box trembled in her hands. Ethan. She set the box down like it might explode. Last night was a mistake. I was upset. We had a stupid argument and I needed space. I never meant to. You texted that you were staying at Jake's, I said quietly. No accident. No autocorrect. Space usually has a couch. You chose a bed with a name attached. Her mouth opened, but there was nothing in it. I slid the box toward me and clicked it shut. We're going to end this with as little mess as possible. There's no yelling today. No scenes. Just logistics. Logistics, she repeated, as if the word were an insult. Deposits, accounts, keys, I said. The life part is already finished. We're just sorting props. Tears pooled. I love you. Then you wouldn't have sent that text. She tried a different road. He's been a friend for years. It got blurred. I was stupid. But you bringing boxes? That was cruel. Cruel was asking me not to wait up while you made a choice for both of us, I answered. I just made the choice visible. She stared past me into the street where people carried coffees and didn't know the world was ending at our table. Can we at least talk to a counselor? For what? I asked. So a stranger can explain to you why I shouldn't be parked outside a stranger's door at midnight with your closet in my trunk? She flinched. We fell into silence long enough for the server to refill waters and pretend not to notice. When the glasses settled, I took out a simple sheet I'd typed that morning. Itemized vendors for the wedding. Venue, caterer, photographer, every invoice I'd paid, and the refund policies next to them. I already called the venue, I said. They'll let us change the date holder instead of forfeiting the deposit, as long as the event isn't a wedding. I'm transferring the booking to a community fundraiser my sister's organizing. The food deposit will fund it. Guests will get a simple email that plans changed. She blinked. You're turning our wedding into charity? Our deposit is just money sitting there. I'd rather it feed actual people than awkward small talk and sympathy hugs. That's petty. It's practical. She grabbed the edge of the paper, then let it go. What about the apartment? I've already asked the landlord to remove your name from the lease starting next month, I said. You'll get the deposit back once any of your things are out. I hired movers for Friday at 10. You'll have an hour tomorrow evening to take whatever sentimental pieces you want, letters, photos, while I walk Bean. After that, the movers finish the rest. I'll video record the walkthrough, not for court, for closure. Her voice cracked. You're treating me like a tenant being evicted. I'm treating you like a person who moved out with a text. She folded her hands until the knuckles went white. Jake said you left my clothes like trash, the neighbors saw. I left them carefully, I said. Folded, labeled. And if the neighbors saw, the message was honest. You live there now. She shut her eyes as if that could delete the picture. I made a mistake. No, I said steady. You made a pattern I didn't see because I wanted the story more than the facts. The text was just the first sentence you wrote clearly. We handled signatures next, an addendum canceling joint accounts we'd opened for wedding expenses, a note to the registry company to remove my name so returns wouldn't route to me, a short statement to our families I drafted that said, "We're parting kindly and privately. Thank you for respecting that. No details. No blame." She wanted to edit the wording. I slid the paper back and shook my head. This message had to sound like me. When the practical pile thinned, the personal pile sat there breathing. The dog, the photos, the friends who came in pairs. Bean stays with me, I said. I adopted him before we met, and he's registered under my name. You know he hides behind the sofa when the blender's on. Moving him now would be punishment. She nodded, defeated. I won't fight you on the dog. Good. She pulled in a breath. Can you at least not tell people why we broke up? I held her gaze. I'll tell the truth if asked. The engagement ended. That's the sentence. You can add whatever punctuation you want to yours. She toyed with her empty glass, then said what I'd been waiting to hear. Do you want me to tell Jake to talk to you? Maybe apologize? Men who host another man's fiancée don't need to talk to that man, I said. They need to read themselves. She stared at the table and whispered, "He has a girlfriend." I know, I said. I've already prepared a quiet packet for her. Screenshots of the text, timestamps for last night's drop-off, and the date our venue emailed the hold. I won't include commentary. She deserves a chance to make her own map. Her eyes shot up. That's vengeance. That's courtesy, I said. I would want someone to extend me the same. She sagged in her chair. The server came by with a bill we didn't need. I paid in cash and left a tip heavy enough to apologize for the air pressure at our table. Outside on the sidewalk where buses exhale and pedestrians pretend not to read faces, she stopped. Is there anything I can do to fix this? Yes, I said. Stop asking me to share the cost of your choices. That night she came by at 7 for the sentimental hour. I left the door unlocked and took Bean for the long loop along the river. When we returned, a small tote sat by the couch, 2 books we'd underlined together, a Polaroid from our first concert, the snow globe from the weekend trip where we got engaged. She hadn't taken much. Maybe that's all she felt belonged to her. On Friday, the movers came. They were quick and kind in that way people are when they understand they're walking through a former life. The apartment looked taller when they finished. The silence changed. It felt clean instead of empty. At 3:03 p.m., my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. Unknown, San Mateo. I let it ring out. A text followed. I'm Nora. I'm Jake's girlfriend. Can we talk? Then another. I got your packet. Thank you for being respectful. I just need to confirm one thing. Was last night the first time she stayed? I replied, it was the first time she announced it. I don't know the rest. I don't need to. I'm sorry you're in this. She wrote back, I'm sorry you are too. No gossip, no trading wounds like baseball cards. Just 2 people standing on opposite shores of the same collapse, waving a small flag that said, Me too. That evening, I drafted the guest email. Dear friends and family, our wedding won't be moving forward. We're thankful for your love. Please redirect any gifts to the community fundraiser on the original date. Details below. I read it 3 times to make sure it contained no lightning and hit send. My phone filled with replies, shock, kindness, a few questions I didn't answer. I slept hard for the first time in weeks. In the morning, I drove the ring to the jeweler for reappraisal. He looked at me over his glasses and said what jewelers must say often, I'm sorry. He cleaned it, measured it, quoted a number, and said he could consign it if I wanted. I didn't. I put it in a small safe deposit box with a note addressed to future me. You kept your word. That's the only gold that doesn't tarnish. Days slowed into a new rhythm. Work, gym, long walks, dinner with my sister, movie nights with Bean leaning against my shin like a sandbag. Friends invited me out. I went. I didn't tell the story at bars. I told it once to the mirror and once to Priya over coffee because she'd earned the right to hear it. A week later, Jake tried his luck. He called from a blocked number and launched into a speech he'd rehearsed. Hey man, things got heated. I just want to make sure there's no bad blood. She told me you're making this a whole production, boxes and emails, and I hung up. He called again. I let it die. He texted, be a man and talk to me. I turned the phone face down and ate dinner on the balcony while the sun brushed the building's gold. Sometimes revenge is as simple as declining an invitation to the noise. The fundraiser came on the day that had been our wedding date. My sister's nonprofit filled the hall with families, volunteers, and noise that felt like it belonged to the living. The caterer used our menu to feed people who hadn't seen a menu in months. I stood by the door handing out water bottles and thinking how good it felt to have the space working for something honest. A few of our former guests came by with donations, hugged me warmly, and didn't ask for details. They understood that endings are privacy's native habitat. I thought that would be the last chapter. Then, at 3 a.m., exactly 6 weeks after the text that detonated our engagement, my phone lit up again. Not Maya, Nora. 2 words. It's done. Then a longer one. Thank you for telling me without trying to hurt me. I left him. You were right about silence. I typed back, I'm sorry it came to this. You'll be okay. She sent a single heart. Not flirtation. Recognition. When I set the phone down, Bean shifted, snored once, and went still. I watched the ceiling and felt something I hadn't in months. relief that didn't need to be explained to anyone. I didn't block Maya. I didn't post about her. I didn't send the ring photo with a clever caption or write a thread about loyalty. I just kept living in a place where my keys fit the lock, my dog trusted the routine, and my phone stayed quiet after midnight. Part 3 would arrive on its own schedule, like sunrise. The day the last paperwork finalized, the last box found a new closet, and the future walked into the room like it had been there the whole time waiting for me to notice. And when it did, I planned to be ready, with nothing left to pack and nothing left to prove. The weeks after the movers cleared her things felt surreal. Every drawer I opened had space in it. The closet looked almost comically empty, like a stage set after the actors went home. At first it hurt. The silence echoed louder than any argument we'd ever had. But slowly it became air I could finally breathe. Maya still tried. She called every few days at odd hours, as if grief was chewing through her sleep. At first she begged, then she bargained, then she accused. "You're throwing everything away over one night," she cried in one voicemail. "People make mistakes. You're so cold, Ethan." I didn't return a single call. Silence was no longer emptiness. It was armor. Meanwhile, Nora, the girlfriend of Jake, the man Maya had chosen, sent me one more message. I ended it. "Thank you for handling this like an adult. I hope you find someone who deserves you." That was it. No more contact. She had her own healing to do, and I respected that. At work, my colleagues asked why I seemed lighter. I shrugged. I've been sleeping better. It was the truth. Nights that had once been heavy with waiting were now clean. I could stretch across the bed, read until I dozed, wake up without the tight knot of suspicion pressing my ribs. One Friday, I saw Maya downtown by accident. She was sitting outside a cafe, hunched over her phone, her hair unkempt, her expression hollow. She looked up and spotted me. For a moment, her lips parted like she wanted to call out. Then, she just stared, eyes red, until I walked past. I didn't stop, I didn't glare. I simply nodded once, polite, and kept moving. That small gesture seemed to hit harder than any cruel word could have. The engagement ring stayed in my safe deposit box. I thought about selling it, but I realized it wasn't about money. It was about reminding myself that sometimes the shiniest promises can turn to ash if the person holding them has no respect for what they symbolize. One day, maybe, I'll melt it down into something new. But not yet. Our families took the breakup with a mixture of shock and sympathy. Her parents called once, asking if we could work it out. I answered gently but firmly. "Ask her what she texted me that night. Then ask yourselves if that's something you'd want me to forgive." They didn't call again. By the time the canceled wedding date arrived, I had already redirected our deposits into my sister's fundraiser. That hall was filled with families receiving meals, laughter echoing where we should have been exchanging vows. Guests who had RSVP'd to our wedding showed up anyway, donating, helping serve. Some hugged me quietly. Others gave a simple nod of respect. It was the kind of closure I didn't know I needed, turning betrayal into something that fed more than just bitterness. That night, I sat on the balcony with Bean curled at my feet and thought about the arc of it all. The text that shattered everything, the boxes stacked in my trunk. The panic calls at 3 a.m., the cafe meeting where she tried to spin the word mistake into something smaller than it was. And the way silence, not shouting, had been my sharpest weapon. A month later, the final paperwork came in the mail. The engagement was legally dissolved, accounts closed, deposits settled. It was official. No more ties. No more obligations. Just two names that used to share a future now sitting on separate sheets of paper. That evening, she texted me one last time. "I hope someday you forgive me. I really did love you." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned it off. Love doesn't survive nights at someone else's door. Love doesn't ask not to be waited up for. Love doesn't send 12 words that destroy 3 years. I didn't reply. That was my forgiveness. Not dragging her through more words, not trying to balance scales that were already broken. Just silence. Life went on. I started running again, something I hadn't done since we got engaged. I signed up for a weekend design workshop, met people who spoke about ideas with excitement instead of excuses. I laughed more easily, slept more deeply, lived more simply. The revenge wasn't the boxes at Jake's door. It wasn't the fundraiser in place of the wedding. It wasn't even exposing her to Nora. The real revenge was this: she had to live with the memory of the man who answered betrayal with calm, with order, with dignity. While she scrambled to patch the ruins of her own choices, I stepped forward into a life no longer weighed down by lies. One night, months later, I opened the safe deposit box and looked at the ring again. It sparkled under the sterile bank lights, still beautiful, still worthless. I closed the lid, smiled faintly, and thought, some jewelry is meant for fingers. Some is meant for lessons. And that was the end.